5. Pan 5.
First of all, I would like to start by asking, how are you?
All things considered, I'm doing well, and I think the only thing I can focus on right now is that there's so much work ahead of us, and I'm really excited to be tackling what it means for girls in Afghanistan to continue to access education.
I know that, back in your childhood, when you were actually going to that school in secret, your parents were, of course, incredibly supportive of that decision. I also want to actually maybe just ask you, did they perceive that as being risky? How did you actually, overcome those feelings of feeling perhaps threatened?
I think they were extremely aware of the risks involved. To them, to me, to my sister, and to the secret school that was run by these very brave Afghan women. But I think they looked at it differently. For them, the risk was raising daughters without an education. And that's what kept them committed throughout all those years in continuing to make sure that their daughters received an education.
I would also love to know how you thought of actually founding SOLA, and why did you think it was actually needed at the time?
In early 2002, I got to attend a public school for the first time. I had just turned 12. And when I started my studies, I was in a classroom with majority of girls who were at least 6 years older than I was. And these were girls who were returning to school where they had left off before the Taliban regime. And thanks to the bravery of my parents and these amazing Afghan women who ran secret schools from their living rooms, I could sense every single day how far ahead I was a sense of guilt and sadness for my classmates that I thought about almost every day. And then fast forward, I was 15 and had this other amazing opportunity to go to the United States and as a high school exchange student. And that was the first time I lived in a society where girls thought it was completely normal for them to have access to education, and they never had to worry about or even think about any kind of threat to their education. And quite frankly, it was the first time I saw that. And then I think finally, what really did it for me was I started my undergraduate education when I was 17 in 2007. And that same year, the UN published a report that indicated that only 6% of Afghan women have an undergraduate degree. And as someone who was just starting on that path, it was really shocking. I should have known, but still there's this power to statistics, and 6%, it's an extremely small number, and it had an impact on me. So I think all of these experiences, in a way, I couldn't escape it. It was always in front of me, and I was increasingly more privileged and more lucky in a way to be continuing to receive great education. And I knew that with every year that I was in school, with every year that I had more and more access to quality education, and that was setting me up apart from so many Afghan women my age. And again, it was this simultaneous feeling of privilege and a great sense of guilt that kept me thinking about what was my responsibility.
I do also want to know, typically what is the journey that you have seen that adolescent girls typically have after they have enrolled in SOLA? How is it when they're beginning to actually attend classes till the point, when they're, let's say, a couple of years into the school? What journey or what change do you typically see in them?
When the girls join us, the very first person they meet on campus is their big sister. We have a very robust big sister, little sister program. And it's really phenomenal because the way we have, in a way, contextualized it in Afghanistan is Afghanistan is made up of many ethnic groups. We have Pashtuns, Tajiks, Uzbeks, Hazaras, Baluchis, and Pashais, and then also similarly we have Sunnis and Shias and Ismailiyas. So it's a very beautifully diverse country, and we took advantage of this program to really mix and match students. So we would have a Pashtun girl coming in and her big sister would be a Hazara girl. We would have, and vice versa. We would just, the whole idea became that the big sister who was chosen as a big sister felt it was a badge of honor to be assigned that responsibility, really looked after their little sister. And it didn't matter where in Afghanistan they came from. What mattered was that they felt personally responsible to welcome them and make sure that their little sisters had a wonderful first year on campus. In the way I look at it, at SOLA, we create space, a safe, nurturing space where these young girls, sometimes shy, sometimes really outspoken, end up growing into themselves. They get to have the opportunity to go through that kind of a development, and we can't necessarily take credit for that process because they go through it in their own ways. What we can take credit for is creating that space, but how they go through it, it's really a process that they lead, and I find that so beautiful.
I know, this year was going to actually be the first year where girls from SOLA were going to graduate. How do you see them today? Or, when you see them, what do you see? What does their future look like?
For us and for the girls, what has temporarily changed is that we are now in a different country. We're not in Afghanistan, but immediately once we arrived in Rwanda, in late August, within a few days, they resumed classes. I have a phenomenal team of colleagues who really prioritized bringing back normalcy to the girls, and I believe this is their 5th week of classes already. Their resolve to continuing to receive an education has not changed, will not change. Similarly, SOLA's mission is to educate Afghan girls. That will always be the case. Nothing changes that. And we're very fortunate to be able to say that we're in a position to stay focused on this.
I know that you were actually able to evacuate 250 of the SOLA community, including all the students. What could you actually tell us about that experience?
Initially, this was really not meant to be leaving Afghanistan because Taliban took over Afghanistan. It wasn't the case, actually. We were planning for a couple of months prior to this, a study abroad program for all of our students, for the entire community, mainly because we have students coming to us from 28 of the 34 provinces in Afghanistan, and our concern was increased insecurity for students to travel by road to their provinces. And so we thought that maybe doing a study abroad program for a year or so would help us ensure continuity of learning for our students, mitigate this risk of travel by road, and then figure out what happens politically in Afghanistan before we return safely home. You know, in a way, that hasn't changed. You know, we're still committed to you know, to returning to Afghanistan when it's safe for us to do so. And we're watching the situation very closely. In the meantime, our girls are continuing to go to classes, study. Like I said, it's an incredibly fortunate situation for SOLA to be safely out of Afghanistan. I actually don't take that for granted for a second. I feel grateful that my community is where we are. But you know, in the long term, like I mentioned, SOLA's mission is to educate Afghan girls, and we will always be very committed to that. And it's a matter of figuring out how we best move forward.
And you have all of Girl Rising's support in your mission.
I know I do. I feel very fortunate. I've been part of the Girl Rising family since 2012, and it's a movement that is very close to my heart.
If you had a message that you would want to give to the world.
Yeah, I think the message is simple, and my message is the message of Girl Rising and all of us, and that is that investment in girls' education has the highest return. We should all know this. In fact, if there's one group that knows this better than we all do, sadly, it's the terrorists who are so fearful of educated girls. And if they can make it central to their mission to stop girls from receiving an education, it is incumbent on all of us to make girls' education central to all of our mission, because therein lies answer to many global crises that we're currently facing. Global warming, that crisis dominates a lot of conversations around the world. Well, investment in girls' education is scientifically and evidence-based proven to be one of the most effective ways to reverse global warming. So we have really got to prioritize girls' education for many reasons, not because we need to be helpful to these young girls, but because we need their help.
You had a message for girls who are today in Afghanistan, and what would you want to tell them?
I think it makes me think about what kind of message I would have wanted to hear when I was a young girl growing up under the Taliban regime. And I think the most important one is a reminder that as girls, you matter. Your education matters, not just for you, but it matters for your family, it matters for your community, it matters for your country. Because you have so much power, your education can do so much for people beyond you. You need to understand that you matter. And it's so important. It's so important for girls to realize this at such a young age. And most importantly, for Afghan girls, my message, even when I speak with them these days from afar, is to not give up. You know, this is a temporary setback, and all of us are committed to making sure that the progress in Afghanistan doesn't roll back by decades. And it's important for young girls not to give up, because we need them for the country's sake.
Thank you so much, Shabana, for your time. And it's, again, an absolute pleasure to be talking to you. We wish you all the best for your future endeavors.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure speaking with you today, Richa. Thank you.
Thank you.